Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to T-Shirt Talks.
Welcome, everybody.
Welcome. This will be your monthly dose of inspiration from the world of masterminds and their journey to success. We'll bring you stories of remarkable individuals who have excelled in their crafts. We'll discover what their definitions of success are, what paths they've traveled, and what wisdom they've gained. So pop on your favorite tee and join us for T-Shirt Talks as we inspire and empower you to create your own success story. This week, I'm excited to introduce someone who's very special to me in his white T-shirt, who's not only just a mortgage professional, but someone I deeply admire, my own dad, Michael Rodriguez. A little bit about him. With over 20 years of experience in the mortgage industry, my dad's become a true expert and force to be reckoned with. His dedication and hard work has earned him a spot in the prestigious President's Club for the last 5 years running with over $60 million in production. He's been in Vegas for over 22 years. He's climbed the ranks to become one of the top producers in the city. Alongside his career, he manages to be an amazing husband and father to 4 super awesome kids. When he's not helping people secure their dream homes, you'll find my dad on the golf course or cheering to some of his favorite teams, Mets, Lakers, Giants. So without further ado, really long intro, yep. Michael Rodriguez.
I'm going to play that on a loop every day when I get up. That's it. I'm ready to go now. Let's go make some phone calls.
So how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good.
Welcome to episode 1.
Episode 1, we have some really awesome people planned for you guys. Planning to bring them in, different people that have their own definitions of success, really great at whatever they do. We wanted to start with you and me. So not only are we on a mortgage team together, but you are my father.
Yep.
Raised me. He is my boss, which is super fun. So
most days.
Yes. So the most important question that I'll ask today is, how amazing is it to work with your daughter?
I think the word I would use would be maddening.
When I'm late?
Every single day.
Yep.
Every day at 9:30, I look at my clock and I'm like, okay, she'll be here in 15 minutes.
But I always look good when I show up.
You make sure you prioritize how you look over being on time. Better
late and pretty than early and ugly.
Well, I'm early and handsome, so
okay.
I work it out both ways. I'm good.
All of it. So a little background on our team. It's also the whole family.
Yes.
So we also have my mother, Kelly, on the team, and then Haley, who is pretty much like a aunt, family friend. She's in the will, all that good stuff.
As close to family as you can get.
How is it working with family?
So honestly, I joke about it being maddening, but it is really one of the most fulfilling things that I've been able to experience, to be able to spend every day with my wife, with my daughter, with Haley. You know, I think that it lends to putting you in a position where you'd have to be better, you know, because I think early on when you and I started working, you know, sometimes I would take a tone with you. Your mother had to struggle through that with me taking a tone, and it's helped to establish boundaries. And I think we do a really good job of it. I think when we're at work, and, you know, once we're done, like we don't, you know, go back and rehash anything that's gone on prior to the day. So, you know, it's come with its challenges, but it's far more rewarding than I'd ever expected. So
because you were a loan officer for almost 18 years before you even started working with First Mom. And so like what's the difference of, so someone has a business, they're by themselves. What do you think is the biggest difference, takeaway, positive growth maybe from working with family to not?
So
would you recommend it?
Prior to your mom starting, we had 3 assistants. Kim Potter worked with us for a few months, and then we had 2 others. And, you know, the contrast creates clarity, right? So the one thing that I shared with your mom when we wanted to really grow, I said, you're the only person I can put in that chair because you're the only one I can trust that's going to take it to the finish line. Because so much of this business, the trust is twofold. Number one, you're introducing people to your referral partners, your clients. So if they hit it off with your assistant better than they like you, if your assistant leaves, then that potentially could lose a client or referral partner. Yeah. And the second part of the trust is just the quality of the work. You want to make sure that what you're putting out there every day is to the same standard that you would have as the person that's signing off on whatever it is that's going on.
Yeah, I can say definitely as your daughter, for me, I feel like the level of investment that I have to the business is probably more than
Oh,
someone on the
absolutely.
outside, because if you win, the family wins,
Hmm.
I win. So I know a huge thing in business is, people are only going to ever be able to give you 80%. Like your 100% is not, because they don't have a buy-in. Like
Hmm.
it's a job where I'm not saying that I'm perfect and always give 100%, but for sure my buy-in is 100%. And the dedication and drive to the overall goal is going to be higher because it's my family.
Hmm.
And I know the back end, I know the person, I know um, the sleepless nights that you have and all that stuff on a deeper, more personal level. So
No, that's one thing that Kelly and I, your mom, we talk about is we may not have the most talented team in terms of. Well, no.
wait a damn minute.
What I'm saying in terms of actual like loan level knowledge,
Correct.
we're still evolving in terms of that.
Yes.
But we 100% recognize the buy-in that
Right.
it takes, and I think that's one of the things that kind of the who was it? I think it was maybe Kai McBride when he was coaching. They talked about, oh, was that other guy with that consultant guy came in, the gas factor, the give a shit factor. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
like that's the one thing that's allowed our team to excel
Mm-hmm.
is that, we may not have all the things other teams have, but like everybody gives a crap. So
Yep.
that is more valuable sometimes than knowing how to look at a loan level
The
price adjustment.
guidelines.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
So kind of a background
Mhm.
on you. So this is where we're at now. Team, family, wonderful. Who was 10-year-old Michael?
10-year-old Michael was a nerd too. So I remember I was, kind of just reflecting on some of this stuff in preparation for today, and I remember I was probably third or fourth grade when I started paying attention to the stock market. I grew up in Waldorf,
You
Maryland.
were a nerd.
I'm telling you, I'm just being honest with you. So I grew up in Maryland, a suburb of DC. It's called Waldorf, so it's about 15 minutes outside of the city. And we lived in a neighborhood, townhouses. So the houses are connected on one side or whatever. And we had a neighbor 2 doors down. His name was Wallace, Betty and Wallace. They were older people at the time. They were probably in their 60s. But my parents and them hit it off. And Wallace used to read the paper and watch the stocks. And like he and I would hang out. So I would sit out with this 6-year-old guy chewing his cigar and we'd be talking and he would help me understand how the stock market worked at a very early age. So if I wasn't paying attention to the news, I was playing baseball. Like that was my absolute passion growing up. I would play baseball year round. I'd be outside throwing myself fly balls, practicing, doing the things. And back then in the neighborhood, we had some good buddies, a bunch of 4 or 5 guys that we'd all hang out and play. But yeah, little Michael was definitely a nerd. So, and had a bad haircut too. So it's gotten a little bit better now.
So did little Michael know that he wanted to do something in finance, or did he want to be a baseball player?
Yeah, 10-year-old Michael wanted to play sports. That was kind of the thing. I didn't start to develop the idea of a career until I started working. My first job, I was 15 and 9 months. It was the summer, I want to say summer of my 10th to 11th grade year. And Grandma Diane comes home and says, "You're not sitting in the house all summer. You are
15.
Yeah,
She's like, "Get your ass
legit,
up and go to work."
legit came home and said, "You're not sitting here like wasting away this summer. You're going to get a job." So at this point, we had moved to a different neighborhood, but they had just built this enormous mall in our area, and there was a food court there, and there was an Arby's opening up. So I went there and applied. I was literally on the first staff or the first crew that worked. But as soon as I got my first paycheck, like things changed. It just, when I understood there was monetary value for my time, it really shifted gears for me. And I think ever since then, I've just viewed my life through, what's the value of your time? And obviously the dreams have grown over time. But yeah, that first paycheck, and I posted a few weeks ago on Facebook, a pair of Penny Hardaways. They were $150, $160. I bought it, but those shoes represent like a change in mindset where it's like, I'm going to do something different than what I've seen.
And so can you give a little bit of background as to the environment? So 15, learn the value of your time, money. up to that point, or even kind of around that point, what was your environment like? Were there people that really influenced you in a positive way, maybe more of a negative way that you thought something either has to change or I want to be more like that person?
That's a really good question. So I've always been lucky that I've always been loved. I've
Yeah.
always had people that have cared for me, but not necessarily in terms of like role models in the
Mm,
sense of somebody that was further down the road. Probably the closest person to a role model would be Dave Carlson,
yeah.
my godfather. Like he's just like a second dad to me. He's always treated me like his son, and he was always Dave's very soft, very quiet, but very much you could see his work ethic in different things. And Grandma Diane's work ethic, I think,
Yeah.
is at the time was second to none. She was always a top producer in her field, so I saw things, but it wasn't necessarily. I didn't necessarily connect the dots in the sense of, they were specifically pouring into me for a reason. It was just more of leading by their own example, and just seeing that obviously helped me as I got into work and starting to develop my own skills.
Okay. So what was your jump from 15-year-old Arby's to Vegas mortgage loan officer? What was kind of that bridge? How'd you end up here? How'd you even end up in this field
Yeah.
going from, because
So
did you go to college or?
no, no. So I want all four of my children to graduate from college. Obviously, you've taken the baton through the first leg of the race. But to be 100% honest, I was not a fan of school. I barely
Mhm.
graduated high school. If
Mhm.
it wasn't for my best friend, Brian Willingham, letting me copy off his paper senior year, I wasn't there. But it was because I was able to, get 2 letters from teachers for a work permit. So I actually only went to school for like 4 hours, but then I would work.
You
But
just want to make money.
yeah, I got lucky. So
Yeah.
with fast food, they don't need the young kids there during the day. So I would get off of work, off of school at 12, go home, sleep, and then my shift didn't start till 5. So
Yeah.
it was perfect. But as far as kind of going back to the 15-year-old jump, after I worked at Arby's, I took a job at Blimpie's. And at this time I was like 17, 18 years old.
Can you explain Blimpies for all those
Oh,
West Coasters
yeah,
out there
you
that
don't have
don't know
Blimpies
what
out
that
here.
is?
And Blimpies is terrible now anyway, but Blimpies is just like a
Sammy
sub
shop,
shop, like a Jersey Mike's, whatever. It's fresh cut, not like Subway. But Subway's going to change that actually. But when I went to work at Blimpies, same deal. The store was right next to Arby's. So I applied. I was, again, one of the first people hired there. But the owner of the store, his name is Tony, and I have for years cannot remember his last name. But Tony at the time was in his 30s. He owned a record shop about 15, 20 minutes from where we were, and he wanted to open a new business, open a sandwich shop. Long story short, Tony couldn't have, he and his wife couldn't have kids, and he and I hit it off. And like he poured into me like nobody else. When corporate came down to help open the store, I hit it off with the corporate GM guy, and they showed me how to like run a business. And this was at
So it was your
17 or 18.
Your first introduction to that world.
That's it. And that has had the biggest influence because it taught me franchising. It taught me how to create a predictable, reliable system that every day you could make sure the sandwich tasted the absolute same. And that's what we've built in the mortgage world. And I'm so thankful for that time at Blimpies, because I mean, those guys, there was nothing I couldn't ask. It was the safest environment I had been in professionally. And it really opened my eyes up to the possibility of leveraging yourself and what that meant. So to close the loop, a good friend of my sister's, Darren, at the time, was working as a loan officer. And he was like, hey, I think you'd be good at this, for about a year. And I was like 19, 20 years old.
Okay.
At that point, I was working at Papa John's, same thing. Like I just loved the franchising piece. And after about a year or so, I was like, okay, let me give it a try. And I can tell you this: nobody wants to borrow money from a 19-year-old wearing Timberland boots. Okay, that is not the jam. So,
weren't you bald too with braces?
Oh yeah, my hair
this.
was even shorter than this. That's back when I was doing the DIY haircuts. So that was not a good look. But he introduced me to the business, and same thing. I got lucky. Jeff Levine, who owned Monument Mortgage at the time, just took a chance on me, hired me, and I was terrible. I was terrible. But got my first loan check. It was like $2,100. I was like, I am rich. I'm not doing anything else. But then Monument ended up closing down, and Grandma Diane was moving to Vegas. So I
Mhm.
was like, okay, like I'll try something different in Vegas. There were a lot of things going on personally at the time that Vegas was a good move for me. So came out to Vegas and then got a job drawing loan documents for $8 an hour. Bottom it was the janitor and then me. And over the last 20 plus years, it's just been chipping away at it.
So, what was, you think, one of the pivotal moments in that time period that made you not only switch to Vegas, but like, I I need to 100% go in on this?
Oh, I remember the moment like it's yesterday. It gives me goosebumps. We are leaving TPC Las Vegas, and we just finished having lunch with Grandma Vicky and Papa. Uncle Matt was there.
So, a little background.
Mhm.
You had met mom
Oh yeah,
at the mortgage company you worked with, and you moved to Vegas.
yeah. So Uncle Matt owned a mortgage company with three of his
Yes.
buddies, and they hired your mom, and your mom and I were just the top producers
Period.
at the company.
Power couple.
So
Period.
there was a lot of competition, friendly competition,
Yeah.
but which meant we both would work late. So like you just ended up getting to know the person because we sat next to each other. So that's kind of how it started with Kelly and I. But you fast forward, that was probably like 2004, and at the time in the mortgage business, you were just going to make money. Okay, so
Right.
here
So,
I am. I had spent the previous 2.5 years working for a big box bank and kind of just learning like the sales side of things and
Mhm.
some of the procedural things, but they had a bunch of kind of unique products, so it didn't apply in the regular marketplace. But I had spent the previous couple of years doing that, and then that's when I went to work with Uncle Matt. And a couple of years after he and I started working together, we're leaving lunch. And at the time, the market had shifted dramatically.
so
So
it was this 2008?
this was 2006.
Okay,
So
so right
my,
before.
my downturns tend to lead the way, but I also get out of them quicker. So 2006, the market was still doing very well, but I wasn't personally because I hadn't done anything over the previous 2 years to really build a business. Like I was learning how to do loans, learning how to kind of sell kind of some of those elements, but actually looking at this as a CEO, I wasn't doing it. So we're leaving lunch, and to put this into context, 2006, I closed 7 loans the entire year.
Wow.
So I
So
tell
for
people,
someone that doesn't know anything about loans, 7 loans in a year, that means you're not even closing one loan a month.
Mhm.
And one loan is what, about
like
5,000-ish
yeah, back then that was probably it. Right around $4,000 or $5,000.
per month, but not even.
Correct.
Yes.
So
So not doing great.
no, not. I mean, I think I made $50,000 the entire year, which was great in terms of like your mom worked full time
Mhm.
at the bank, and even now today, making $50,000 a year,
Right.
making a good living. But for what I was
The
doing,
hustle wasn't there.
it just wasn't.
Yeah.
So I was walking out with Matt, and he told me about a coaching company. And he was like, hey, my friend signed up for this coaching program called Loan Toolbox. And like, it's really made a huge difference. So I went home and we were broke. Like, I mean, little Sophia wasn't born yet. We were in, Bloomington at the time. There wasn't just a lot of discretionary income in that sense. We had just gotten married. So, or we were actually in the process of getting married. But I signed up for Loan Toolbox. It was $100 a month. And I thought I was going to die to try to get your mom to sign off on that. But from there, hiring my first coach, that has changed just my entire life, personally and professionally.
And since then, about how much coaching have you done?
I've never not had a coach since then in some capacity. So some of it's casual where it's just, people that I've worked with in the past, and I can give them a call and they can run some stuff down, and all the way to the extent of having, weekly calls and accountability and all the things. I think for anybody that is looking to develop in an area, whether that is professionally, if it's, your health and wellness, whatever it is, I'm a firm believer in a coach just because that outside perspective sometimes can help to fill the gap quicker.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing in business is that, there's always that gap of where you're at today versus, where you want to be. I don't want to waste time getting to that next level, that next result. So if I can effectively employ somebody to help me better understand that, that's a game changer. And that's helped me take, and really use that lens we were talking earlier, the hourly wage piece, and just better understand what's the highest and best use of my time to get a result.
So as someone, you, not me, as someone who's a numbers person, let's
Mhm.
say you invested that, what would it be, $1,200 that year in coaching. What do you think the return on that was?
I mean, I can tell you we went from the older I get now, the more the numbers get foggy, but we basically went from like seven loans in 2006 to I think like 22 loans the following year. And then 2009, and again, when I say everybody goes into their funk and I come out of it, 2009 at the time was our best year ever up to that point. We did like 55 loans that year.
Wow.
So within 3 years, we almost 10x the business.
Yeah.
And it was just that $100 a month and just, understanding, one of my former coaches said, just submit to the coaching program. We're not going to ever give you bad information to hurt your business. Not a good business model for us. So, that was really just gave me a lot of confidence.
So for your 100% leap into the business, 100% you're going into it, that was your burn the ships moment, was
100%.
Get coaching, do better.
Get coaching or get a real job. Like legitimately, like that was the last time I ever looked for a job was 2006. There was one other time in 2003, 2004, where I had a really bad day where I screwed up on a loan. But 2006, like I was like, either you figure this out or you have to get a real job.
Yeah. What would you define as success for first, success for your life, but then second, success in this industry, specifically real estate? Because I think that's a little broader, but success for your life and success for real estate.
I think the older you get personally, you want to have a healthy marriage. You want to see your kids healthy. You want to see your kids developing. So I think success is the fact that, I've got a good marriage. I have a healthy relationship with my kids. I feel for me, that's the evolution. I can tell you, 15 years ago, I probably wouldn't have had that same balance because there was still such a grind in the business. Professionally, it's funny. People get into like mortgage and real estate because they think they can make their own hours, and I think you've got to be very careful when you define success professionally, because what I've learned, again, just through age, is my success professionally evolves.
Right.
When you guys were smaller, it meant everything to me to take you to school every day, to take Sophia and Paxton to school every day. So the fact that I could still make a good living and have that flexibility meant everything, but as we've gotten older and, you have more bandwidth at home because the kids are a little bit older, like you obviously are living your life, now you do kind of look at it more of like, okay, how can I build this, and build it in a healthy way where it's balanced and not that weird work-life balance. It's never going to be balanced, but it's balanced in the sense of I'm honoring my personal commitments, but I'm also developing something professionally.
I was listening to actually this other podcast the other day, and they were talking about how the first 10 years of a child's life is so formative. And a lot of people, they have kids, they have a family, and they think this is the time that I have to build something for my kids, when really no, that's the time you need to be with your kids. And then once they kind of do have more independence, are on their own, that's when either you do it before they're born, or that's when you end up building whatever business empire. Success in business. What are your goals for 2023?
2023, I think, is to really refocus, my efforts. For those of you that aren't familiar with the mortgage space, the last 2.5 years have been like drinking out of a fire hose, just through some, fiscal policy made a very favorable housing market. But
in 2020?
Yeah, 2020 all the way through probably middle of 2022. That was probably the most fruitful 30 months that any industry has ever seen. I mean, it was interesting, good and bad. It was interesting. But, since the summer of 22 through today, there's just been some things that have disrupted the business, so we have to, kind of retool some things and get back to some of those best practices that lead to the success. So I think for me, to answer the question, success for me this year is having the foundational elements of the business back in place. The call schedule for me, the realtor appointments, those types of just cornerstone pieces that are required to springboard you to that next level.
Yeah, I think what people don't realize, or at least what I didn't realize in this industry, was being successful in real estate in general is not, yes, it's going to the events, it's networking, it's all that, but it is day in, day out consistency. It
Heck yeah.
is, you are following up on your database. You are making weekly calls every Tuesday and Wednesday. You are, for you, I mean, I don't, but reading all the reports about what's going on in the economy every single day. You are doing the practice of, even as a person in real estate for over 20 or 22 years, high producer, you're still calling new agents, networking with new agents. Like, you are fostering, we're going to clients' houses to help them set up their HOA. Like, it's that consistency and it's all those things that make you successful. That is more of a grind and not fun and fluffy.
It's not. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions that I think people have of success is that you somehow it's an attained thing, and it's no, it's an everyday thing. It is that consistency, and if you're unable to maintain the consistency, then you're just going to get inconsistent results. The analogy people always use, it's like you go to the gym once, like you're not going to see a result, but you go to the gym, 5 days a week for 90 days, you're going to see a freaking difference. And business is the same thing. Yeah. And I think one of the thing that gets so confused in our space sometimes, and I would say this to anybody that runs a business, don't underestimate the value of 90 days. You can change your life in 90 days, but it's showing up every day for those 90 days. And that's ultimately what propels you to continue, because a lot of us get addicted to results. I know I am. Like I am a results oriented human. Like if there's not a result, you're probably not going to get a reaction out of me. It drives a lot of people freaking nuts because I don't get caught in the BS. But it's like if we're working to get to a result, I can get excited about that.
What are some obstacles or challenges that you faced in this industry, specifically with not just your life, but being in the business? Like, what are some obstacles or challenges?
I think the one thing is, for me, like I'm a very loyal person, okay? And I hate when people say like I'm this. It's like, no, I mean, I have a track record. Like
he's a Sagittarius, so he is very loyal.
Yeah, I'm loyal to a fault. And I think what I have found in this space is that you can think you're friends with people. You can think that you're doing all the things. You're having dinner with people. You're doing stuff, and I can think of 3 very specific times in my career where it wasn't reciprocated. And it was very, very hurtful for me, and it ultimately has changed me significantly in the sense of I am much more guarded now. When it comes to developing some of those relationships, and just making sure that I'm much more aware of who I'm around and why are they around me? Like what benefit or what am I serving in them that if I'm no longer serving, is our relationship going to change? Yeah,
I think as someone who, for me, I'm very people oriented. So like my heart is very social justice oriented. Like I care about people.
Absolutely.
That's why I like the job. I don't really care about the numbers. As someone who really deeply cares about people, that's something that I learned really early on the team with you. I think that was so important for me to know, is like, and kind of going back to why you should work with your family, or why working with our specific family works well, is you can trust people and you can be close with people, but if it's business, it's business. Like at the end of the day, everyone is most of the time looking out for their interests and being more aware of not allowing yourself to forego your best interest for someone else because they're not going to do that for you. And it's not that you don't care about people. It's not that you don't work or collaborate or trust people or are the best version of yourself, but it's that you don't allow there to be a situation that someone can take advantage of you.
Absolutely.
Because you're trying to do the right thing. That it's very, again, reciprocal, and that there may have to just be harder boundaries with what you're willing to give in a business setting.
No, you said that very well. And I think that is the word. It's just boundaries,
right.
And once you can establish that, and for me, I tend to establish boundaries more after a painful event
right.
versus proactively. So yeah, it was just, it was a learning experience.
Yes. Kind of going off of that, the positive side, how has collaboration, mentorship, partnerships in this industry really helped you in your success?
I think it's the opposite side. You see
right.
such good in people.
Yeah.
It's like inherently, 99.9% of people, they're for you.
Yeah.
And I think some of the big benefits have been like legitimately great friendships that have been born out of this business with just people that at one point, they were a cold call,
yeah.
and now we're going on a trip with them. So I think that part makes it a lot of fun. The different like personalities of the
yeah.
people, you're exposed to so many different things in our world.
Yeah.
And, you really do get to see how good people are. And when we help folks and you hear their story, where people that we've helped that have been homeless before, this is the first person in their family to own a home. Their parents were immigrants. They're the first generation American to own a home. I mean, some of those stories are just amazing. And to be able to be just a very small part of that experience, and, it really is something that is very fulfilling in that sense. And you wouldn't think, banking, home loans, mortgages, paperwork that it would be fulfilling. But if your motives are right, there's so much you can get out of this space.
Yeah, it's definitely a very relationship-oriented business, and that goes for everyone. Like, everyone, I feel like, would assume that, you have to build a relationship with clients, but having good relationships with other loan officers, like your competition, if you will, having really good relationships with realtors, both on the listing side and the buyer side, because we don't, really have to have communication with the listing agent, but still building those. And I kind of know the answer to this, but what are some things that we do, or what do you think are some really important aspects for someone in real estate or in business that they can do to help build strong relationships with clients, other agents, other realtors? Like, what can you do? How do we do that?
I think the key to building a strong relationship, it's twofold. Number one, act more interested than interesting. Ask a lot of questions. People love to talk about themselves. That's everybody's favorite topic. What's everybody's favorite word in their language? Their name. So early on, I learned to ask the questions and find out about people. But the second part, and this serves in every relationship, you've got to be able to communicate. People in our space, we mess with the three most important things in somebody's life: their home, their money, and their family. Okay, you will kill somebody over one of those three things, and we get to deal with all three of them every single day. So communication is paramount to being able to make sure people know where we're at in the experience. So if you're a new loan officer, if you're a new real estate agent, or you're just new in business, always make sure that you're asking questions and just getting to know your people, because they're going to tell you the answers to the problems that they need you to solve. And now all you have to do is go solve them. And then as you're solving those problems, just make sure you're communicating to everybody what's going on, and don't be afraid to share bad news. That's the thing.
That's your gift, I think.
It is. It is. We were on a car ride over here, and we had to talk to somebody, and Haley said, you have 2 minutes and 5 seconds to solve this problem. And I was off the phone in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's you can do that and still give somebody peace of mind.
That's huge.
Because you just have to be confident and direct.
Yeah. Do you have any funny story? And I'm thinking of specifically with Kim and Rich, but do you have any stories of relationships with clients that we have, or funny stories with clients, or?
No, Kim and Rich, that one was recent, going up to the Jimmy Buffett concert at the MGM, and then ended up just gambling and having a few beverages that night. That was quite the adventure. I think one of the fun stories was going with Paula to Zion a couple of years ago and riding bikes through Zion.
Paula's a realtor that we work with pretty often. She's awesome and all
Oh,
things fabulous.
you know, just even going to the hockey game with different people, just things like that. One of the coolest things about my life are just the experiences that I get to have. Like, whenever I freaking die, I think the most epic part of my life has just been I've had some really cool freaking experiences.
Yeah. No, I think it's really cool just to see your relationships with some agents, like going to their wedding
Absolutely.
and going on trips with them, going golfing with them, even clients. I mean, Kim and Rich, like they were hanging out with us on Easter, like Easter brunch, and just people that you think it's a small piece of, oh, you're just financing their home, but they really do become family. And I think that's a huge cornerstone of the business is we are a family, like literally
Absolutely.
you, me, Mom, Haley, but then all our clients are and should feel like an extension of that family. So what do you think are 3 of the most important aspects of how you've built the team and cornerstones of our business, kind of going into that?
Yeah, I mean, I think number one, we've always made the experience paramount. We want to make sure that when you go through the home loan process, it's not death by 1,000 cuts. All too often, the narrative when somebody's getting a home loan is it's going to be a miserable experience. So we've made a life's work out of making sure that's not the case. And, for us, a lot of that means we do our due diligence up front. Mm-hmm. So if you can figure out what that boogie monster is in the loan early on, you can address it. And, I always tell folks, time can make any solution easier. You give me a week to solve it. Great. You give me 10 minutes, I may still solve it, but I'm telling you, you may hate me at the end. So it's like, let's just make sure we communicate. But I think the experience piece is huge. But more importantly, in terms of the day-to-day, application, we give really, really good advice. Be
an expert in whatever
absolutely.
You are. Yeah.
I treat your money the same way I would treat my money, and I tell clients all the time, I'm going to give you the same advice I would give my daughter, I'd give my sister, whoever it is. And I genuinely live by that. We're not going to do a bad loan. We're just not.
No, there have been times where Mom has yelled at you, like you have told someone, this is not a good idea for you financially. I don't feel comfortable doing this. And so they went with someone else to do it because you just genuinely want what's best for the person and are not going to do something that is not with integrity.
Correct.
So I really admire that about you, and I agree. That's huge.
I just, you can't compromise with that, because if you do it one time and then somebody finds out, like, that's your reputation, like that's the only currency that we really have is that reputation. And then the last piece is, like, we can really figure out tough loans. We're not here just to work the cookie cutter stuff that's easy. We have worked really hard to get some families into properties that, if I can confidently say, if they didn't work with us, they would not own a home. They would not have the potential for generational wealth in terms of being able to build equity, do the things that real estate is the primary vehicle for most people. So, I think when you create a great experience for somebody, when you really give them the advice that you would give your family, and you're willing to get your hands dirty, that becomes an attractive piece for other agents and other people to work with us, because we're not here just with our hands out.
Yeah. What is one of the biggest pieces of advice or wisdom that you'd give to someone who either wanted to get into mortgage, wanted to get into finance, wanted to get into real estate? What would you say is super important?
I think the most important thing is, like, be willing to do the work. There's such upside income potential in the mortgage and real estate space. Yeah. Just to be clear, I've not had a paycheck in terms of a salary since, I think, 2002, 2003.
That's scary.
Yeah, no, it's my entire adult life, basically, 20 years ago. So you figure I was 22, 23 at the time, the last time I had, a job that I would show up to and I would get paid regardless of the outcome. So I think oftentimes we can get fixated on that. But really what it's going to boil down to are what are your daily disciplines? What are you going to do the things? Because if I want to make $500 an hour, I need to ultimately contribute $500 an hour worth of value to the marketplace. So you're paid in direct proportion to the value you add to the market. So if you're making, $18 an hour, it's like that right there is the value that's being added. Does it mean that you can't grow from 18 to 30 to 50, whatever it is, but what is your professional development that's going to warrant somebody doing that? So if you're getting sitting in the space and you want to make, $500,000, whatever it is, you've got to look at it through the lens of how can I deliver that much value to the market and come up with a plan that allows you to do that.
Yes. It's hard. And I think that's a huge piece that people, especially in real estate, for me, I mean, I swore I'd never be in this space. And
Yes, you did.
here I am, a licensed girly. But it seems, I mean, I knew it was hard and I knew that it wasn't going to be unicorns and butterflies, but I didn't realize and it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't just start at this level of production. And it really is in the details. It's in the small things that you do every day that aren't super fun. So it is hard.
It's funny. There's so much reading in this job. And what I mean by that is, yesterday your mom came into the office and she's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Just looking at my books," because I look at how many freaking books through the years I've read, and then that doesn't even account for weekly newsletters that, about different, economic reports that come out, all the things, and what we do, there's guidelines, so you've got to know what's different on a VA loan versus an FHA loan versus a conventional loan, when it comes to how, different elements are looked at. So, to your point, it's in the details. And when I was doing that work, it wasn't at the office. It's like,
Right.
I was printing out guidelines. I was printing out newsletters, reading books, before taking you to school, after you went to bed, and just like sitting there, just trying to absorb it, because I didn't have a finance degree. Like I didn't know the Federal Reserve and monetary policy. I didn't know any of that. But I can tell you now, I'll talk to freaking anybody about it, because it's like I took the time to understand it. And not everybody has to be a nerd like me. You don't have to know everything about fiscal policy to be a good loan officer. But
you don't know everything about fiscal policy still.
No, not even close. I just said that to the team today. It's like I show up every day like I'm the dumbest guy in the room.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. Like I don't need to be like the guy in the spotlight. It's like I know that I am smart. I'm smart enough to know at this stage in life I don't know anything.
Yeah.
So it's like you just take that like open hand approach. Much, much easier way to live life.
How much time and then how much roundabout number do you think you've invested in yourself, coaching, books, subscriptions, all the databases we use over the last 20 years?
I couldn't even give you a number. Like it's.
Do you have an hour number, you think?
No, the only thing that comes to mind is like the idea of the 10,000 hour rule as far as getting to mastery. Like I do believe in that, but I mean, when I think back, especially like after I got into coaching, the everything consumed me with work. Like your mom will tell you, like if I'm not with the kids or with her, even to this point, the majority of my thinking is about work. Like that's just it. So it's like, I may not be at an office, may not be by a computer, but I'm trying to think about how do we improve a system? How do I improve a script? How do I ultimately make something, that much better? So that's a great question, but that's a hard one to answer.
A lot
would be the answer.
What would you consider your greatest accomplishment so far?
Professionally?
You could do both, professionally and then also personally.
I think professionally, I remember this, and I talked to your mom the day you started, like literally your first day.
That's wholesome.
No, but I mean, I talked to your mom, and it was just such a meaningful day to have you there. Like I've always known your inherent value and ultimately what you can contribute, and if I can be a small part of your story and helping to develop that, I think that'd be awesome.
Remember that when I'm late, please.
Exactly. And that's what drives me crazy, because it's like, I know it's in you. But so I think that's probably legitimately a highlight day of my career. Personally, it goes back again to just the experiences. I think of some of the stuff over the last few years that we've been able to do as a family. The trip that we took to Hawaii was a real bucket list item for me. Like genuinely, I'm the weird guy that has like a written down bucket list on my phone.
We'll get to that. That's not
exactly
here. We'll get
right.
to that.
But yeah, I think the trip to Hawaii was just something that, we had obviously gone for your high school graduation, but to have the kids there and the day we went snorkeling just out there and everybody's smiling. So those are two things that really stand out.
That's cute. How do you find balance And as your daughter, I would argue this is something that you've recently more figured out, because I think people talk about like balance in life, and
Hmm.
that's just not, I think, especially as someone who, hmm, I don't think that I have the switch in me to go like you, 0 to 100. Like you can just 100%, and it can be a negative thing too, but
Yeah.
just like 100% go all into something. I don't really have that switch as much. I'm very more in the middle, but I also think that's contributed to a lot of your success. How within that, as that's kind of your go-to, have you found balance in your personal and professional life?
I think number one with having the little kids,
Yeah.
our dynamic is interesting in the sense of there's a 9-year age gap with you and Sophia, and then Paxton, it gets larger, and then Ellie.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like as you've gotten older, and seeing how quickly that goes, I think back
Mm.
to our breakfast at the little church thing that we used to go to.
Dads and daughters when I was like 10 years older than anyone else
Exactly.
in there. Yeah.
You actually drove us there, but no, I think back to that, and then a few months ago, I'm walking down the aisle getting married.
Yeah.
So I think it's easier for me now to take time away to make sure when Ellie wants to go
Mm.
out and look at golf balls, or Paxton wants to go watch a Spider-Man movie, or Sophia has an interest in going to a concert, just to be like, there's always going to be time for work.
Yeah. That's good. So looking ahead, what are some of your goals for the future? And how do you plan on evolving?
So the evolving piece, I think that, I'm coming to that, I'll be 44 this year, and one thing I learned was at 35 was when I realized I was going to die. Before I was,
Jeez.
no, I read a book called Halftime. So
Oh,
it was a
okay.
great book, but it really talked about just, your mortality,
Yeah.
and, I read that book when I was 35. It was a book recommended by a buddy. And it just made me realize, like, man, there is a shelf life to this, because when you're in your 20s, man, you just go. Nothing ever hurts. Like, you don't need a lot
Yeah.
of sleep. Like, you
You're
think
right.
you exactly. I rolled my ankle a month ago. It still hurts to put my shoe on. Like, it's bananas. But I think now turning 44, and just as you get older, people pass away, all the things. But for me, it's more about me making sure I'm there for the kids,
Mhm.
and getting myself healthy to be there for grandkids. Now that we've got the little grand puppy Stella running around, and Ginger and all that,
Ginge.
you realize that you want to be around for those memories. So I think just making sure that I'm continuing to take care of myself, get healthy, do the things. I think that that's important. Professionally, I just I want to take the hill like one more time, and just get one level higher than where I'm at now. And I know once I get there, I'm not going to be
No,
satisfied.
exactly. I wasn't it like 2 years ago you had your one goal to make a certain amount of money that year,
Mhm.
and then you reached it and you're like, yeah, no, that's not enough.
Exactly. Now I want to double it. Like, and that's kind of the thing.
Yeah.
It's like, and I think part of me is realizing with age, there's certain level of wisdom that comes with that. But I don't want to lose that hustle, that grind. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be 80 years old, like just sitting there staring at the TV,
No, complacent. I think a lot
Exactly.
of people get there.
And I love now, especially with a lot of your friends that I've been able to, I wouldn't even say mentor, but just be buddies with, and to know that they still call every once in a while when they just need to talk to somebody and different things. Like, I want to continue to be able to do that,
Yeah.
and that's some of the more exciting pieces now. Like, you think about it more from a context of legacy. Like, there was
Yeah.
it was in a rap song. I can't remember what it was. I'm a big fan of the rap music, but he talks about you die twice. That it's
Oh, it's
Macklemore.
Macklemore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's like the day they bury you, but then the last time your name is spoken, and you
Yeah.
think about that. I don't want to just leave here and not make some sort of contribution if I have the opportunity to do it.
Yeah. No, I think for me, a big moment of realizing, not necessarily like I've always known I'm going to die, and it honestly doesn't freak me out, but the legacy piece was at
Mhm.
Papa's funeral,
Oh yeah.
where one of his finance friends, who he was a partner with in business, he stood up and talked about how Papa literally sacrificed his salary and his position as CEO for his friend and for all the other people that work there so they could have a job and like sacrifice that. And to me, it's like that's in my mind, and as someone who works with you, is going to be your legacy. Like the person who always took the high road, who led with integrity, who did it to genuinely help people. And like that's the mark that I think matters, especially in this world and in this business where people are out for themselves. And I think people also are in it for the money, where, yeah, sure, you need to feed your family and provide for your family, but who are you? And like that matters more, I think, than anything else.
The money has to be secondary.
Yeah.
And that's so like counter to what people, what sometimes the perception can be. But if you do the right thing and you do it long enough, you're going to get rewarded. So whether that's because you're a person of faith, you believe in the universe or crystals, whatever it is, like you do the right thing and you keep a focus on it, everything tends to work itself out. And I've always believed that. And that's been when it was 2006 and we were telling people like, this is not a great loan for you. And your mom was like, we have bills to pay. And it's like, well, if we don't do it now, like when do you just start having integrity? Like at what point? So,
right. Okay. We're going to get into the speed round, but before we do, is there anything that you want to talk about that we didn't bring up? Anything in business, anything in life, any story that comes to mind of a mentor or anything like that?
Nothing specific. I think it's just the consistent theme is that I've always just been very lucky to have great people around me, and that starts back with a guy, Dave Donnelly, when I worked at Arby's, like took me under his wing and really made me come out of my shell. Like he was the first person to really challenge me because I was not social. Like I was an introvert, and Dave really pushed me to communicate with the different people on the staff. I think of Tony over at Blimpies. I forget the guy's name that I met at when I worked at Papa John's, but he was one of the store managers that really poured into me. But I can go like just an endless list of people that I've just been so fortunate. And it starts with Wallace when I'm like 9 or 10 years old.
Yeah.
So I've always been very, very fortunate, but I'm also humble enough to know, like, you can just be quiet sometimes. You can just listen, and you're going to learn a lot more if you just listen and read the room than, trying to be the guy that everybody's paying attention to.
What would you tell 17, 18-year-old Michael?
I'm going to keep this on what I would tell him professionally, because personally we'd have quite a long talk, learned quite a bit over the last 20 something years. But I think professionally, just, don't give up, that there's going to be bumps and bruises and all the things that happen, but don't give up. I think back to one of the most, probably one of, at this point, just being older, but one of the biggest moments of my life, I'll remember. I remember we moved here January of 2001, and right before we left Maryland, I totaled my car. So when I came out here, I had a rental car, and I was haggling with the insurance company to try. And granted, I'm like 21. I'm haggling with the insurance company. They're telling me I'm going to have to pay to total my car, and I'm like, somebody hit me. Like nothing happened. Long story short, like we finally settled with them. I get mad. I leave the house, and I'm at an intersection in Green Valley, and I remember just wanting to break down and cry because I was like, this is just not going to work. And I just remember looking like down at myself and just like saying like, Mike, you've got to be more resilient. Like, and that just became a word I repeated to myself over and over and over again for probably the next year. And I just was able to get myself, the job with the bank here, drawing the loan docs. But it was that moment at that intersection where I was either just going to give up on something that I really believed I could do, or I was just going to have to learn how to better manage every aspect of who I was to just move forward, even in the face of adversity.
Well, I think too, yes. And I think too, you had gone up against so much up till that point personally that you should not be statistically you should not be where you are today. You should not be alive. You should not be healthy. You should not live where you live. You should not drive a tank. It's an Escalade. It's just a tank. Like, you should not be where you are. And that piece of resiliency, I think, is that, and good people around you are the reason you are where you are today.
No, I would agree with that statement. I think that, I agree with what you're saying. Like, I beat some odds to get here, but I'm grateful for everything that I've gone through, even, when you go through the adversity, you can sit there and I have my days where I feel sorry for myself about certain things. But at the end of the day, like, you still got to wake up tomorrow. You still got to grind. You got to do your things. And, you've got to focus on what's ahead of you. And I think that's been one thing for me, especially over the last, probably 6 or 8 months, really, taking hold of that quote where it's like, the don't look through the rearview mirror. That's the little one. Look through the windshield. That's the future. That's what you can control. So keeping that, on the forefront is very helpful.
Very nice. Okay, we have our speed round. These are kind of fun questions.
Oh boy.
Not too serious. Favorite place to vacation?
Ooh, that's a good one. Speed round, I'm going to say Scottsdale.
If you had to choose another job, what would it be?
Financial advisor.
You are a financial advisor.
I'm saying I'm financial advisor in the sense of like, I would like my dream, like when I was a kid, I was going to be a stockbroker on Wall Street. Like I desperately wanted
Wolf of Wall Street vibes.
So New York's one of my favorite places.
If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be? That's my little sister Sophia is also here, and she said me.
That would be her answer. I would say if it's just personal, Jim Rohn. That's actually who I'm going to say.
Who's that?
He was a like a motivational speaker back in the 80s and 90s.
You want to pick Kobe?
So here's the thing. It would be like Jim Rohn, Kobe, or like Tupac.
Oh, that's a good one. If you could have, I already said that. One book that changed your life.
One book that changed my career was Todd Duncan's. Oh man, well, it didn't change I've got like 8 copies of it. There's a Todd Duncan book that really helped. That Halftime book really helped. High Trust Selling by Todd Duncan. So
have you seen his Instagram at all?
No.
His Instagram is hilarious. I don't know who's in charge of it, but they have him just doing the most ridiculous things. He's a goofy, funny guy.
Yes.
Love him. Don't know much about him, but love his Instagram. Favorite thing to cook?
I love making a good filet.
Very good. Favorite ice cream topping?
Favorite ice cream topping? M&Ms. I love some M&Ms.
Hard chocolate?
Heck yeah, I love some M&Ms on my ice cream.
Best Disney movie?
I don't watch movies. I don't know a Disney movie.
You don't know okay, best movie?
Best movie, like Pulp Fiction.
Best TV show?
Best TV show? I love Suits. I think
that's a good one.
I think Suits was one of my favorite shows.
And now we're circling back. Name 2 things on your bucket list.
So I want to, this is funny. So I have this thing. I just want to pay off somebody's debt one time. Like just to be able to, like,
I thought you kind of did.
We've helped, but I'm saying yeah. That's one. And then, the big one for the family is I want to take the family to Europe.
I agree.
Very nice. Of course.
Sophia, do you have any hard-hitting questions for Dad? You don't have any questions?
Let's think about it.
Who is your favorite child?
Me.
Sophia just knows how to answer all the questions.
So that wraps up.
This was fun.
Yeah. This wraps up this first episode of T-Shirt Talks. Really love talking to you and talking about the business. And that's his alarm to do something for work. So it never stops.
Yeah.
Never stops. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening. And we'll have someone else super awesome. Do you kind of have any sneaky peekies for next time, it's not all going to be finance related. A lot of
Correct.
it's going to be people from all over the map, people way cooler, funnier. I'm just kidding.
That's impossible. No, we'll have some good stuff, and we'll come at you guys, once a month. And yeah, we're just looking forward to connecting with our audience and having a blast.
Lovely. Well, thanks so much.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.